What happens when two of the most plugged-in people in digital care team up to help you make sense of the chaos? Welcome to Control Plus Care. I'm Michelle.
And I'm Katie.
This is your weekly briefing on the most important digital care updates. We're unpacking what you need to know this week in under 30 minutes. But first, Katie, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm in Ireland. First international episode of the pod. Managed to make it through airport security at Liverpool, always great, Liverpool John Lennon, with a microphone and with a ridiculous headset. So, a win is a win. And you, how about you?
Excellent. Yeah, do you know what? I'm really good. I'm just, everyone will have seen the blooper this week. Now, I've definitely left my kids with enough snacks to get them through this podcast and potentially Armageddon.
Brilliant. Well, you can never be too sure how long this is going to go. So making sure they're well equipped is really important.
We've committed to 30 minutes. It should be okay.
Yeah, 30 minutes feels like an achievable goal. But then last week,
They ruined that.
it was a lovely interlude. And I'm sure whatever I was going to say will reoccur to me at some point in the future.
Hattie was thrilled. She's now on the television. So
Oh,
we've done wonders for her ego.
amazing. I think when you obviously do a spin out of Digital Care Hub for Kids, Hetty's already auditioning for the role, is she?
Like one of those that they used to do on the Saturday night programs where the kids interviewed grown-ups. I think that could be a winner.
That would be amazing. Oh my gosh, explain cybersecurity to my 6-year-old.
We shouldn't. But Rihanna, cut this out because we want to keep this idea so no one else steals it. Okay, so I've got the first story. Just leading in hard with a cyber story, and actually a really good news story, I think. So MHCLG, Ministry of Housing, Communities, Local Government, and former other names, has recently awarded contracts to two of the big consultancies, Accenture and KPMG, to support a new local government cyber response service. The National Cybersecurity Centre have like a rating framework where essentially they categorize various incidents and how serious they are. So C3 is essentially where it's either significant impact on a large organization, wider or local government, or a really big risk to national security. So this makes sense for local authorities. If someone were to take down a local authority, which we've seen a few times now,
Yeah.
this would be able to ramp up the response to that quite quickly. So, a big investment. I think there's about £18.5 million been put into this. So really recognising that increasingly local authorities and with them social care are, a target of bad actors in this space, and that the government is doing something about that.
Yeah, I think this is just such good news as well, because we know that there's been quite a lot of local authorities who've themselves fallen victim to cyber attack in the last couple of years. And actually, to be fair to them, been really transparent about that, sharing learning. So actually having a really clear response mechanism going forward and that sort of more national support, I think can only really be a really good sign.
Yeah, I'm really pleased to see it, and I'm looking forward to seeing what comes out of it and whether this really does make a difference to when because unfortunately is when the next incident happens, not if.
Well, that's it as well. And obviously, we work so closely with the NHS as well in a lot of the projects that we do. But that we know that a lot of care provider organisations have much closer links to the local authority than they necessarily do with colleagues within the
Yeah.
NHS. And so having that sort of like clear lines of responsibility is something we've spoken about quite a lot in the past. And this is hopefully one of the steps towards that. Though obviously, we don't want a C3 level incident. That sounds terrible.
Yeah, we don't want one.
Right. So I'm going in a completely different direction on the article that I picked this week. So full disclosure, I was involved in the steering committee for this. I was very lucky to get to see some of this quite early on. But this is a new research report from the Decide Research Committee at Oxford and around Europe, looking at adopting and embedding home sensors in social care and doing a rapid evaluation of this. And it's now published on NIHR. We'll share it in the show notes. currently waiting review, which is happening at the moment. It's sort of a pre-release. And I think what's really interesting about this study is it was an evaluation of different sensor technologies used across 3 different local authority areas for people living in their own homes, and doing sort of like a really deep evaluation of what that means for people, for their friends and families, informal carers, formal care, as well as staff within the local authority. And each of the councils took a very different approach, but there was still sort of similarities that can be drawn out across it. So at least 2 of them, the cohort as well, were quite interesting, of people who use care and support. So tended to be older, over 85 in general. A lot of them, 60%, lived on their own as well at home rather than living in sort of a group environment, and also appeared to have quite high dependency needs. So they looked at things around sensors for assessment, reablement, and long term care monitoring, and found that there was a lot of perceived value in these technologies, particularly from the people themselves and from their loved ones. So people sort of really felt that it made them feel safer and supported at home. And
Mhm.
particularly for family carers who were having to go in a lot or doing a lot of that admin burden of calling up multiple times a day, there was a reassurance about being able to sort of see on an app where somebody was, what they had been doing, if they were safe. I think the report's quite clear that it didn't necessarily cut down the amount of time for that family caregiver that they were spending. It just really reorganized how they were approaching care. So rather than having to do sort of long phone calls to check in and just have that sort of check in call multiple times a day, that phone call could actually be spent planning trips, planning outings, actually having meaningful conversation with their loved ones, because a lot of that sort of just check in, how are you? Where are you going? What are you doing? Can be covered by the app and by the home sensors. So I thought that was really interesting. Um, there was also some evidence that was coming out that it could identify healthcare needs as well, and having that data over a long period of time for an individual to see if their needs were changing, if they needed additional support in any way, and really having the data to be able to back that up was quite helpful for many people. There were some participants who weren't necessarily so happy with that, but it does a bit more of a deep dive. Um, and I think what was interesting as well, so they looked at doing an actual full economic evaluation of these projects and found that really the data just isn't there to be able to do that in a meaningful way yet. So they've created a series of recommendations about ways in which proper data for economic evaluation could be addressed going forward, things for local authorities themselves or for and technology industry as well, to really consider looking at sort of where that economic modeling will happen. Because, we talk about this all of the time. It's likely there'll be savings in one place over there, and then there'll be extra costs somewhere over here. And actually, when we're not talking about fully shared budgets, that can make it quite difficult to actually have this technology, who's going to pay for it, who benefits. So having that economic evaluation, I think, is going to be really handy. And while it couldn't be done in this study, having those pointers of how it could be done in the future, I think, is really great. So would recommend people going into more detail on it. Massive congratulations to the team at Decide and Joe and everybody who was involved with writing it. I think it's been really, really good, honestly.
How lovely. And do you know what? I really like the focus on family carers.
Yeah.
Like, I say this as often as I can, really good care keeps people at home and where they want to live, and
Mm,
really good tech enables that to happen. And the example you gave there about family members being able to, they do just as much caring, they do just as
yeah.
much contact, but that contact isn't now at the person, it's with the person. It's conversations that are a bit more meaningful. And with my little kind of baby researcher head on, I'm like, could we, really evidence that the quality, the difference there?
Hmm.
Because we all know that family carers particularly, it upends their lives having
Yeah.
to do this, because this additional burden is so all consuming. We know that many, many women particularly leave the workforce because of family care and responsibilities,
Yeah.
and the economic case for keeping them in work longer can only be a positive one. But again, we're having to unknit the finest mesh one strand at a time to really understand the economic implications in
Yeah.
this kind of climate. And people far cleverer than me can do that.
Yeah. One day we'll find it economists that we can just sort of set onto all of these things and be like, you can fix that. That's not mine and Michelle's area.
Yeah. Oh, a pet economist. We should get one of them.
Yeah, definitely. If there's anybody, just looking for some charitable work to do, I guess.
Someone who's just like,
Um,
I could solve that problem.
Brilliant. Always looking for people like that. But yeah, I just think it was such a important report. I really as well loved the focus on sort of family carers. There's also some really interesting things which came out of it around people enjoying having the data and having something more structured in terms of the approach, but also saying, but the data doesn't know my mum, for example, as well as I do. So it will
Yeah.
only take you so far in terms of really understanding the full life of that person and their wants and their wishes. And
Yeah.
so, sort of saying it has to be used in conjunction with, as opposed to replacement for. I think that came out quite strongly from some of the testimonials from some of the people who took part in qualitative interviews. I was so pleased that I could say qualitative then. I, so, yeah,
Well
really,
done.
really interesting stuff. And um, also, some interesting ththings I think for us to consider as well around how they were having conversations with particularly older loved ones about some of this technology and having to kind of say, because a lot of the cohort who was involved in the research had dementia, cognitive impairments, that sort of thing. So they're having to explain quite a few times that no, it's not a camera. We're not putting a camera in here. And then like a couple of days, no, it's still not a camera. And sort of how you navigate some of those conversations, I
Yeah.
think, has got some really good learning there.
Interesting. Really great. Thanks for bringing that story, Casey. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, no worries.
Well, I'm going to move on to my next story, and I am going to set off the AI klaxon,
Hmm.
but it's an AI from a government point of view. So lots of talk this week. We know Donald Trump is in town, and a big part of that conversation is going to be around AI and investment. So the BBC had a story where, the prediction from the Microsoft boss at the moment is that AI could boost the UK economy by 10% in 5 years, which is an insanely huge number. And I think was probably calculated by Gowan. But that's not to say it's not going to create some movement. So essentially, some of the big players in this space, Google, Nvidia, Microsoft, are all making big plays in UK as a big AI market. Um, the biggest single investment has been by Microsoft, and they proposed £22 billion worth of spending, which is
Ooh,
their largest amount of spending outside of the US. That's enormous.
yeah, huge.
One of the big things that NVIDIA are looking at is a supercomputer in Essex. So, lots of like big initiatives. The government have gone out and said that, they're designating the Northeast as a possible AI growth zone, and that could generate an awful lot of jobs. Lots of talk of these really big numbers and these really big investments. And right at the very bottom, it was like, but we also know that AI is a huge consumer of energy.
Yeah.
Supercomputers take a lot of water, take a lot of energy, and we are a teeny tiny island.
Yes.
So that's like that kind of got my hackles up because I'm like, all of this is great, and we don't want to be the AI naysayers, but
But
one of the things they're proposing is more gas turbines. I thought we were winding down the North Sea.
I
As the
also did.
child of someone who works in oil and gas, can we not propose more
Yeah. I
gas
think
turbines?
it is going to be interesting, isn't it?
So, I mean, we know we say really firmly that AI is not the solution to everything or even most things,
Hmm.
but do we want to really be putting all our money on something that's actually a bigger problem? We've heard some of the stories coming out of the US around water quality, around,
Yeah.
whole cities that are losing power on a regular basis. And our infrastructure, whilst it's good to do what we need it to do, we're really lucky we live in a country with really strong national grids. What if it becomes national plus a fair bit of private business? I don't know.
Yeah. I think it is something which is quite worrying. We talked a couple of episodes ago as well about how in the sort of how the government reports on carbon and greenhouse gases and all of that sort of stuff and our commitments to net zero. They don't have a specific line which they pull out about AI and sort of advanced
Yeah.
technologies within it. So whether we'll even be able to tell necessarily within the sort of publicly released figures going forward, sort of what impact this has, I guess, is going to be a question for us. And this is on a slightly
Cue
lighter
the
note for a
adverts
second.
telling everyone to turn their television off.
Yeah,
Sorry,
but
go on.
no, but on the TV thing, do you remember? I don't know if this even happens anymore because it used to be, in like an evening in England, like there used to be surges on the national grid when there was adverts on like one of the main
Mhm.
channels because everyone would get up and turn their kettle on at the same time. And it just made me think, I don't know if that even exists anymore because now everyone's doing streaming. It's probably a little bit more
Streaming.
even. Yeah, yeah. So,
Except
well,
now it'll be when everyone goes on to ChatGPT something.
that's true. Simultaneously, everyone doing it. But also that was something actually on the report I was talking about before. So it's really, really clear that something they really need to had to work on. So a large number of people who participated in having sensors put into their own homes didn't have the internet there. So a big part of all
Mm,
three of the council's work was they had to, go in, put in Wi-Fi connections. Sometimes that was quite difficult because these were homes which are quite
mhm.
old and aren't well set up for it. So we don't necessarily even have our basic infrastructure right yet. We're
Yeah,
still in the analog to digital switchover. So, it's great we are looking at further infrastructure investment, but I would quite like everyone to just have like a basic high speed broadband in their house more than a supercomputer right now, I think.
yeah, fair, entirely fair.
Right. So, next story. I can't believe it's not me this week, by the way, setting off the AI klaxon. Like, nearly always, I'm here being like, I have AI stories. Not one from me this week. So this one is a bit of a sort of this has just been announced. We don't know a huge amount of detail yet, but I think it's something that's going to be really, really important for us to be thinking about sort of going forward. So um, back in January of this year, we've talked about this before. There was a commitment from the government that they were going to be looking at a social care interoperability platform to connect health and care records and to move that forward. And that's had a tender which is out and it's been announced today who's been awarded that contract. So that's huge news. Really exciting to know that this is moving forward. And so the point of the social care interoperability platform is that it's going to support CQC registered care providers in England specifically with access to care information for assessment and planning, also linking up data sets for safeguarding, safety alerts, that sort of
Brilliant.
thing. And also to look at doing efficient transfer of records between social care providers themselves. So, not just can we get information from the GP or the pharmacy or to the hospital, but actually, if somebody is moving from domiciliary care to residential or residential to nursing? How are we making sure that that information moves with them, no matter which setting they're in? So I think that sounds like a really positive step. Obviously, we will know a lot more sort of as the government announces more information. I'm sure there'll be a lot of consultation happening around this. But I think really it looks like from what's been mentioned in the procurement that it's not just about sort of what is the needs now around direct needs and assessments and that sort of thing, but actually in the future, what could digital records mean for us? How can we think about secure messaging? How can we think about citizen access to their own records in social care? I hope we don't know that that will be linking into the NHS app and the proposed changes there and the single patient record, which has
Yeah.
been talking about. Also, potentially some options around sort of better oversight and service planning. Also, potential regulatory access, which would be interesting if we're looking at potentially having CQC, having live feeds in the future. That's a potential. That is not a commitment, just to be especially clear about that. But, these are the things when we're
Details to
talking
be
about
very much decided, yeah.
very, very much. Again, there will be much consultation. It's fine. But I just think that this is actually a really clear indicator of we talked a lot about how far the social care sector has come, how amazingly it has done to adopt digital social care records, to rapidly digitize in like during a pandemic as well, like the most difficult of environments. And so having more steps so we can see what the future vision of that would look like for the sector, I think is really exciting.
Do you know what I really like about this? And I think doesn't get talked about enough in the digital and tech conversation is this is about the infrastructure. This is the
Hmm.
behind the scenes, not quite so sexy stuff. This isn't
Yeah.
about an individual piece of tech coming to save us. This is about building a really strong foundation that all of our tech will live on in the future. And that is incredibly exciting to me because this is what transforms care. This is what makes it easier for all of us to adopt innovation, to do a better job, to join up a system and improve people's experience as they travel through that system. And I think the point you make about like the sector's come such a long way. I've been in this post for 4 years, and the conversations I have today bear very little resemblance to the conversations I was having 4 years ago when I was introducing the idea of things. When, cybersecurity was an alien concept to people when I started this job. Now people are asking me for more. You know,
Yeah.
they're coming to me with technical terms. They're coming to me asking for something more sophisticated than some of the information that we've been giving them previously. And that really is a testament to where providers have seen the future and run at it.
Yeah, definitely. And running at incredible speeds as well. This is not sort of like a light jog, sort of like couple of kilometers. People have been Usain Bolt, that's the only runner I know, sorry, who's fast, like right ahead with all of this. It's been amazing.
Yeah. And they've been doing it in amongst everything else they have to deal with. This isn't their main job.
No.
This isn't the reason anyone got into care. You know, I'm constantly amazed at how digital and advanced organizations have become in a really short period of time under really adverse circumstances and with very little resource. So
Yeah.
to see the government investing in something like this is, music to my ears.
Yeah. I agree.
Well, that's it for all our stories this week, which means, Katie, it's time for Cyber
A
Squirrels.
The best bit.
So this week, because it's the best bit. No, it isn't. We love talking about the big serious stories, but we also love these stories. Um, so we've got a little one each this week.
Mhm.
Um, on my kind of journey around things around energy and sustainability, I traveled to Japan virtually, obviously, and discovered that for the past 10 years, they have been using, I'm going to have to read it because if I try and say it off the top of my head, I will get it wrong. Piezoelectric tiles in like really high foot traffic areas like train stations that generate electricity directly from the kinetic energy of footsteps.
What?
Imagine them at Euston at 4 o'clock on a Friday.
Just power the whole
That
station.
would be the surge.
Yeah.
We'd need some big batteries to serve all that. So yeah, essentially it takes the pressure from footsteps, turns it into an electrical charge. They then harvest that and it uses it to power local systems, and it's really effective. It's obviously clean, it's sustainable, it is fancy, which isn't a reason to do it, but also it's kind of a reason to do it. So yeah, in Japan they use them in Tokyo train stations. They've got them on various urban walkways, and I'm like, this is incredible.
That is amazing. Also, because now Dan and Rihanna in the team both have walking pads. So the second we can get this and they can generate the power themselves at work.
There's got to be some sort of HMRC implications, though. I don't know that I want to fill out those forms of how they
Yeah.
claim back the VAT, and I don't know.
No, fair. Maybe that'll be like a phase 3. I'll think about it later on.
Okay,
So
let's let big bodies do it first.
yeah, fair. I also have a sort of weird infrastructure technology story, which is sort of links in with this. So this is a story that I read today, and I absolutely love it. So researchers at Aarhus University in Denmark have found out a specific form of bacteria, have found a way to make it live in cement, and this bacteria is apparently really good at storing electrons. And so, actually, you could have buildings built of bricks, which could actually store energy and electricity within them just from the bacteria. And when the bacteria get to the end of life, I don't know what the lifespan of a bacterium is. Apparently, there's like a specific food they've created which brings them all back to life again because bacteria are mysterious beings. So, this is obviously really early days. It's just like in a lab at a university right now. But they're sort of saying this could be a living buildings with bacteria, which also are cheap to make and can store electricity and energy within them to power themselves.
That is real science.
Yeah, I understand literally none of
I
it.
hope they are so. I don't understand. It's just on the cusp of it might be magic. Like,
Yeah.
no, might be magic.
I mean, what
Like
do you mean
that
that
is what science
bacteria
should
can
be.
live in cement? What?
No, not just any bacteria. The electricity storing bacteria can live in cement.
The world is really an amazing place. You know, I like science so much. They must be having such
Yeah,
a nice time.
that's it. I know, doing their experiments.
Yeah.
Keeping the
Oh,
bacteria alive, being like, "Oh, they've all died. Oh, no, we fed them. They're back alive again." What
yeah.
a we're in
I
the
made a
wrong
bacteria
business.
food. Yeah, I wasn't great at science in school, so I doubt it would have worked out for me, but I would have had fun on the way.
Oh, I mean, I wanna see their LinkedIn profile. How do they even describe that job?
Yeah. I mean, they've got to be having like just the
Incredible.
most incredible like hinge profiles on their dating apps, don't they?
I don't wanna invite these guys to a dinner party.
Right? I mean, you could probably meet them. Aarhus isn't that big. I've been there.
Let's send an email, see what we can do. Oh, but that wraps up all of our stories for this week. So come back next week where we'll be discussing the latest digital news in care. So, what happens when two plugged in people team up to demystify digital care? You get control plus care.
Subscribe now wherever you get your podcasts. All of the links mentioned today will also be in the show notes.
Tell a colleague, especially if they charge their phone more than once a day and could do with a little bacteria filled brick.